not in the physics.
Good evening, welcome to the Face Off Friday night. Peter Kivazo. And about this time tomorrow, the game in Nambole will have ended. One of those interesting days, before I start the Face Off, I will tell you, if you put on the colors I'm putting on tomorrow, don't come to Nambole. Because at least the red in this shirt appears in a certain party's flag. So those have been banned by the police. Interesting. So I'm still thinking, which color doesn't appear in any party's dress?
The Amam Baba's car.
So yellow is NRM, green is DP, red is UPC, blue is FDC. I'm listing out which ones you don't need to wear tomorrow in Nambole. But I have a full table. I'll start with the lady at the center of the table, Mary Mutesi, putting on a color very close to those that should not appear in Nambole tomorrow. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Good evening, viewers.
And right next to Mary, depending on where your eyes go first, is David Pulkod.
The happiest man in the world at this point in time.
Well, today they celebrate the 8th Apollo Milton Obote Memorial.
Yeah.
Yep. And on my immediate left is the man from the mountain. There was a time when the wise men came from the east.
Still, they come from there.
Oh boy.
Wise men and
well,
women.
I am the moderator of the show.
Okay, all right. But
Mountain
I
of
was
the
giving
sun.
my
Mountain of the sun. Otherwise, it may be Mountain of the moon, but Mountain of the sun.
Welcome, Simon.
And thank you so much, and good evening, viewers. The wise still come biblically from the east.
Well, biblically indeed. Possibly we need to check whether we are reading the Torah or the Quran or the Bible. And Charles Romshana.
The Almighty God is great.
As I was walking up WBS, he was up perched on the hill and he was talking to Kampala. He was saying he's on top of the highest mountain.
like a Rio Mchigaman shouting.
Watching over.
You see, as we were growing up, we were told that Bashir would stand upon one hill and address the next
They
hill.
would communicate.
Oh, yeah.
And having heard you today, I don't doubt that.
No, we had pyramids. It's pyramid system.
And viewers, today we talk about sovereignty. We talk about that animal that is regarded as independence across Africa. Yesterday, Uganda was celebrating her 52nd independence. But so telling as well was the fact that on the other side of the border, on the east, Kenya was welcoming back their president, Raisi. When we were growing up, President Moi also had Mtukufu, Rais Baba. Now the current Raisi has sort of lost a bit of those titlings. But President Uhuru Kenyatta was returning from the ICC to a momentous welcome. Nairobi was set ablaze. The whole of Nairobi was on the streets to welcome the president. The vice president handed him back, well, by any measure. The vice president handed him back the seat of power and authority. And in Kampala, Raisi Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, generally, was pointing his finger at the ICC and saying, leave Africa alone. Africa is not independent, so that the colonists call us to their courts and whip us and do what? Africa can solve her problems. We do not need solutions from the colonialists. And I was sent thinking, sovereignty. Uhuru submits himself. The African president says you should never have. David, I'll start at you. Yes, you've been going around. I'll start with David and then come to Simon, and then I'll hear Charles and Mary. Viewers, I will also say that two of the people seated at this table have had opportunity to be deployed by David at some point, depending on which office he was running. David, sovereignty, Africa. And you've had the comments of President Museveni. You've seen Uhuru submit himself at the ICC. Did Uhuru dishonor the president's office by submitting himself to a jurisdiction beyond Kenya? And what do you make of President Museveni's comments at the heart of the celebration of independence in Africa? Have we brought our independence into question by submitting to the Mzungus yet again?
Well, fellow countrymen, this is a very interesting development, actually very unfortunate, because the very people who are in the better position to know and who themselves appended signatures on the Rome Statute, and not only appending the signatures, meaning to ratify, they also came back home and domesticated that law, meaning it's now part of our legal system. They brought to our parliament, and our parliament ratified and really endorsed it, and now it's part of the Uganda law. That's President Museveni. You did not only send people at the negotiation of the Rome Statute, you did not only sign it, agreeing to it, you did not also stop there, you also brought and transformed it into a Uganda law. And our parliament adopted it, so it's part of our legal system. And for you, not only that, but you even sent Amama Mbabazi to take the Konyi case to ICC. And then you sent Rugunda to go and negotiate with Konyi in Juba. So this double speak, these double standards, this dual personality of our president is what I stand to oppose and reject, because who is he trying to deceive? Who is he trying to bluff here? That do as I say, but not as I do. So I would like President Museveni to walk the talk. Your actions have been moving on a different axis, and now your talk persuading Uhuru Kenyatta, persuading other heads of states in Africa to bolt out of ICC, it doesn't add up. These are moving on two different axes. I have been on record saying that the problem I have with President Museveni today, particularly Museveni of the later days, okay, is a man of a dual character. He's a man of dual personality. So you go to Africa Union and ask other heads of states to get out of ICC, when you yourself at home have not even initiated any legal measure, any policy, anything, not even a cabinet paper, let alone even approaching your own cabinet. And then you come to Kololo and insult our independence and speak populism, cheap populism, you know, which he has been against himself. And then you come now and try to hoodwink citizens that you are actually a patriot, that you are actually a Pan-Africanist, that you really detest this thing, and that Africa must get out. Wait a minute. Uhuru, by submitting himself,
didn't he put actually the independence
what he
of
did,
Kenya
he did not. He did
at
not.
question?
He did not, because the Rome Statute established ICC, the court, to be complementary, not to substitute the national law. So it is simply to try those grievous, those which have not been taken up, not to replace the national legislation, the legal regime, but simply to try those with the highest, most impact. And more so when a country like Kenya has not yet even tried the smaller ones. So you have not even put a system in place for trying those lower people. Now, that's where I think Museveni needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs to reflect what he has just said. Yeah, President Museveni. Because you see, when you, I respect authority, but more so when it stands there for the good. That's what God established them for, okay? But when the leaders misuse that power, instead of for the good, they use it for the bad. There they lose me. I don't respect that. But for now, let me say that when Uhuru Kenyatta submitted himself, because Kenya has ratified that statute, Kenya has domesticated the law, and therefore to go and clear your name in that court, what's wrong with it? You go and clear your name if you have nothing to hide. But does it mean to say that when you're president, a sitting president in Africa, you are above the law? That you cannot be accountable to your people? But is it being African? Is it being African?
David Hold. Of course, is it being African? Certainly, African kings were never subjected to
people died. Excuse me, people died. But people got displaced. People's farms got burnt. Churches got burnt. Those victims.
Of course, I have other questions about that.
Please go.
But David, think about it this way: within our native laws as different countries, We do not subject sitting presidents to any of these criminal procedures until the exit for the honor of the office they sit in.
And that's the Africa, because if colonialism was bad, certainly independence, the African chapter, if that type of behavior of our heads of states is worse, when will something better begin, which is neither colonialism nor independence, the Museveni independence type?
Simon, you've listened to David, and you possibly even heard the president yesterday, and you've interacted with the circumstances. A, is subjecting yourself to the process of the ICC forfeiting the sovereignty of your country? 2, is trying out the Museveni option, African solutions to African problems, actually abdicating the sense of justice?
And when they were signing it, what were they up to?
First of all, sovereignty is a notion that has been established in law and international relations. The countries that are independent exercise their sovereignty, and as such, they are supposed to have powers and privileges according to them as independent states.
As such.
Now, the issue of the Rome Statute was established by the sovereign states. And these sovereign states agreed to a judicial system that will ensure that certain crimes are punished beyond the national courts of judicature. Or that by extension, the municipal laws, through ratification process, can have that law incorporated in the national laws. So you can actually be punished within the national arrangements, or actually you can face charges beyond your national borders, and that the obligation of each member state to ensure that people who commit crimes in the 4 major areas can be punished either within or outside their borders. Now, it is true also that some African leadership are beginning to rethink that action. They are beginning to rethink in the sense that they think they are targeted, they think that the justice is being used by some communities, particularly in the West, to target African leaders or some African leaders, and so on and so forth. And I think we need to be intellectually sincere and honest when we argue out these issues. Are these leaders trying to divert their attention, to divert their ills they're committing against their communities, or do they have a bone of contention in the arguments? And I think intellectual sincerity is very, very critical, and we should actually research into this and come up with plausible information and see whether they have an issue or not. Personally, I think that the Rome Statute does not necessarily erode the sovereignty of these countries, because we should hold leadership accountable to their actions at a particular point, T, whether when they are in leadership or after. But in this case, I am one of those who drafted the Constitution in 1995. We left out the president during the tenure of office deliberately because we did not want to disrupt the governance, because it is very sensitive when the leader is still in power to say that it will be subjected to a legal process that can be targeted, can be disturbed, can be disrupted, and so can be diverted for that matter. So we want the leader to take actions, to take firm control of the country affairs, and that, but after he leaves or she leaves office, can be subjected to some rigors of law. And I think that could have missed out in the Rome Statute, that the Rome Statute should have spelled out when and where a leader can be subjected to the actions of the Rome Statute, like the ICC is. Because if you look at Uhuru handing over power to his deputy president, I saw that's quite a new phenomena. It may sound nice because it's transferable, it can be transferred back and so on, but also there are risks involved. There are risks involved.
Well, why do we have vice presidents? Our presidents should be able to take leave.
But it's not about theory. This is not about theory. These are practical things. And we have seen where the leaders, when it has happened before, even people who are in office can undermine their own leadership. And so I find that risky indeed. But my point is that I want only to agree with David to the extent that it is important to subject leaders to certain scrutiny But to me,
But also
it
that
should be
they
after.
signed already.
Yeah, should be after.
So they should
And secondly, I wouldn't want to agree with David
They were willing.
that because they signed, they cannot
They were
rethink.
not coerced.
Yeah, okay, it was freely done, but
And not
people
them,
can
but the
rethink.
country.
People always establish certain norms, people establish certain practices, and they rethink about them. But that rethinking must be subjected to certain rigors. I would like that Uganda engage the intelligentsia, the public, the general population about this matter. And we've not had the chance to really debate this.
I'll hold you there.
Put a referendum.
And understand whether we should move.
Well,
the
we'll do a
nation
referendum on this table.
or not.
We'll do a referendum on this table.
Referendum.
Mary,
Yes.
seated between the two guys, you've listened to them.
Yes.
David thinks that the African presidents and President Museveni are really being double-faced. They're speaking with a forked tongue. Today you subject Konyi and his team to the ICC. You say, please subject them to this process. Then tomorrow you're saying, hold on, the Africans should withdraw from this system. Is it actually seeking to exempt the presidents but subject the rest of the citizenry to this process? Or is it a fear of an unknown future that keeps the mind fearful of the future?
Thank you, Peter. I want to agree with David and Simon about their analysis about the Rome Statute, the signing, the ratification, and all that. But particularly about the comments of the president, my view, what I want just to state clearly here is that he's not the person who is starting the debate. The debate has been there both in the academia, in the press, and everywhere. Basically,
It was actually at the last African Union sitting.
Yes.
When,
So
the Deputy President Ruto was invited. The African president sat and urged Kenya to withdraw from that
yes.
process.
So, in other words,
be
President
belligerent.
Museveni is not inventing the wheel. He's just reinventing the wheel and resounding a popular view that is being held not only by politicians on African land, but also in the academia. When he says give Africans a chance, African solutions to African problems. In other words, he's resounding a Pan-Africanist spirit that even the academia is involved in the debate. Peter, you'll agree with me that the debate has even been there, even when warrant of arrests were issued for those of Konyi. There was a popular debate about African transitional justice systems, the issue of Matoput, which actually brings the point home to what the president is trying to say. So there is...
so instead of an ICC,
there
you do a
is-
Matoput, you
there
cleanse
is
people with a bit of
what I'm
blood
saying
and wash
is
them
this:
with herbs.
there is
calm
a
down.
general debate. There is a general debate. Even that happened in Rwanda. You remember international justice systems set up the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, and Rwandans say no. The aftermath of the genocide, we can handle it in our African sense of justice. You look at South Africa, the post-apartheid era, they said we can deal with it using the Ubuntu concept. So what the president generally is saying, it is not him who is actually
Mary, hold
advancing
there.
it.
Mary, hold
but
there.
even from a
Hold on,
different
Mary.
line of view, you can hear all
Mary,
this
hold
coming
on
up.
here.
Yeah.
Because the concept of the Rome Statute is not to handle what you can handle home. Is to handle what you have either abdicated from handling or what you have failed to handle. And they are saying, okay, we're giving you a chance. Handle through your judicial systems. But things that have gone beyond that minimal limit that you can handle at home, we will not leave to impunity. And they're saying,
Rightly,
do
right.
everything you can do. Have you charged those that hacked people with pangas in Kenya? Have you done this? Have you done this? Do as you can. But those that you haven't, we will call to an international tribunal that you can't call to book within your presence.
Simon made mention of it, and what I just want also to clarify is that it's unaccepted and a known principle of international law that where there is an issue that's of conflict between international law and national law, international law takes precedence. And Simon actually made mention that in our national laws, and I think also David, in our national laws there is that general immunity about sitting presidents. But for the sake of Kenya, and especially speaking about Uhuru, Ruto and all the other people, there was even that call, because the Kenyans were saying, do not subject our people to your system. For us, we have enabling laws that we can deal with them. So the issue is not so much about abdicating responsibilities and roles of the justice system and for the states, but the issue is that actually we are looking at the ICC, its proceedings and everything, as if it's a witch hunting spirit about African leaders.
I'll hold you there. Viewers, I'm going to take a break. When I return from the break, I'll come back with Charles Romshana. Think about it. You have President Gbagbo, you have Charles Taylor, but you do not have folks from the West. Of course, there's been talk about Charles here would love the Israelis to appear at the ICC.
Why do you want them to send me drones?
Or the Palestinians, as it were. But the question is the court actually witch hunting Africa and therefore trying to take away what we earned sometimes through blood? If you look at Kenya, South Africa, is that what is being reversed in this particular case? What is the importance of particular observations at our independence celebrations? Don't go away.